Hi, everybody. It's Jim Grillo from here, Chicago.com, Chicago's trusted resource for meeting and event planners. This is another great episode of 20 minutes in 2020. I should have made this easier to say. But I'm really happy to say that we got the pride and joy of Harvey, Illinois with us, as the late Chuck Kopic would used to say. And I remember, Tom, the first time we ever met, we were at Gibson's. You had asked, let's meet for lunch there. And I will never forget, we're sitting there having lunch, and to the right, who comes up? Chuck Kopic. And you guys just have laughs and hugs and everything. I mean, you guys were great friends, weren't you?
Yeah, he was, a Chicago, as you know, sportscaster, and I'm a big sports nut. So, we always got along. And he emceed an event when I was touring with Frank Sinatra. I had to do a corporate event in Chicago, and he introduced me, but he was such a fan of Frank Sinatra that he introduced Frank more than he did me, and Frank wasn't there, you know.
Then we leave Gibson's, and who's outside on the patio? Mayor Daley.
Yeah.
And you had to give him a joke.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I can't remember the joke, but you guys had a great conversation as well. But going into that, like, you're in LA now, you've met tons of celebrities, a lot of them your friends, like, you know, you and Gary Sinise do a lot with the 100 Club. You've got Joe Pesci, you've got Clint Eastwood, David Letterman, which, by the way, he was here a couple of years ago for Buddy Guy, and he did the Netflix thing here, his show. And I got to tell you, he was just fantastic. What a nice guy. It was a small invite-only crowd to be there as, you know, wallpaper and, you know, clapping and everything else. But he was just so funny and just such a great guy. What do you think in today's world, how do you think he would do at Late Show from his house?
You know, but ironically, you bring that up. We talk almost every day. You know, we've been buddies for 45 years. We met when he was a brand new comedian, and I had only been doing it about 5 years. So we were both new. But I said the same thing. I said, how do you think you would do today with the guys doing it in their backyard? I said, would you, be doing the same thing? He said, yeah, I'm sure I'd have to do the same thing. It would be just difficult with all of the bits they did on the street and things like that to fill up that much time where you have this social distancing and stuff. A lot of that stuff wouldn't work, and it isn't really working, to be honest with you. Look, comedy needs specific things. I don't care how great your material is, how great your delivery is, how great your timing, all of that's very important. Material, timing, delivery, but you have to do it to an audience, and preferably an audience that's all sitting together, no gaps. Preferably a low seating, because laughter is sound. It hits the seating and comes at you. So that's when it's ideal, when you got them all sitting together. We, as entertainers, whether you're a singer, dancer, comedian, juggler, whatever, you're an energy that's going out to the audience and back to you, like an electrical current. See, going out to the audience and back to you. If they're all together, that current goes out, and now you work your timing off of them, their energy. When you put gaps, you sit 6 feet over here, 5 people over here, 4 over there. You just took a scissors and cut this electrical wire, this current, and it doesn't work. It works, but it doesn't work like it's supposed to work, And so that's the problem with this, the problem we're having today with the social distancing. And I fear this country, this world, has all become OCD. Whether I don't care if you find the cure to this virus and you get the vaccine. First of all, 50% of all people in the United States do not take a flu shot. So you find the cure, probably 50% aren't going to take that vaccine. So my point is, you find the cure, so what? I mean, next year you got the coronavirus. Next year, what do you got? The Budweiser virus? Then we got the Schlitz virus. Are we going to shut the world down every time another virus comes? We're already become so OCD. It's going to take years for people to start going back in the crowds. The Eagles, the Rolling Stones, those big groups. I know for a fact several comedians, top-notch comedians who draw big, they wiped out 2021 and they're booking now in 2022. They've already washed out on 2021. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole new ballgame, what we're doing right now. And as you know, last week I did an hour and almost 2 hours on virtual called The Man Who Made Sinatra Laugh. And it got a huge following and incredible reaction. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but the reviews were incredible because people were stuck in their homes. And for 2 hours, I entertained them with funny stories about touring with Frank Sinatra, David Letterman, stories about Dave. But they were, a lot of people called it their happy hour. After dinner, they sat down and they had a drink and they watched in their home. And like I say, for 2 hours. And I think that's where it's, as you know, Jimmy, that's your business. That's where it's going.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're all kind of moving to this online. I think there's going to be a hybrid in the future where you'll still have live events, but then you'll also have these, for, maybe smaller or larger meetings, and maybe even smaller meetings, board meetings, and, types of meetings where you really don't need to travel to. You've been doing a show. It's been the one-man show for Frank Sinatra. And I saw that here last time you were in Chicago, and it was fantastic. And then, you and I have talked offline too, and you would tell me some really great stories. It's so interesting. Like I encourage anybody who's looking for some entertainment in their home and wants to hear some really good stories from Tom about his travels on the road with Frank. And you got tons of those, Tom. And but Tom's also the triple threat. So he can do corporate meetings, he can do emceeing, he could do stand-up, or he's also a motivational speaking tour as well. So, but he could do that right now virtually into your office or your sales teams if you're interested. And I highly encourage you to contact us if you are interested.
I give motivation, for years. I'll digress and get to the motivation. I grew up poor, as you know, in Harvey, Illinois. 8 brothers and sisters, lived in a shack. 5 of us slept in one bed. We were raggedy poor, holes in my shoes. We had no bathtub, no shower, no hot water. It was a rat-infested, roach-infested shack. I shined shoes in taverns. I set pins in bowling alleys. I caddied in the summertime. I sold newspapers on the corner, all to help feed my brothers and sisters. I was a high school dropout at 16 because I was embarrassed the way I was going to school, with holes in my shoes and raggedy clothes. At 16, I dropped out of high school. I went into the Navy at 17, got a high school diploma from the Navy, and went to junior college nights later. But while I was in the Navy, I read every positive mental attitude book I could find. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, A Guide to Confident Living, Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics, Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I read all those books, and I began to apply those sciences to my life. I've been in show business for 50 years now. I've had a wonderful, successful career, and I attribute a lot of that to those books that I read. If you're going to become a brain surgeon, you wouldn't just study brain surgery, you'd watch the brain surgeon operate. So when I first started reading those books, they taught me that. I wanted to be a comedian. I watched comedians, how they performed. And I began to apply those sciences, the power of your subconscious mind, whatever the mind can see and believe it will achieve. And it worked for me. So I began to tell other people about it. And then I began to get 2 or 3 people, young comedians, and I'd motivate them. And then I put together a little 10-minute, and then I put together a 20-minute, and now I do an hour of motivation on 4 subjects: perception, visualization, self-talk, and develop a sense of humor. And I elaborate at like 20 minutes on each one of those subjects. Perception, visualization, self-talk, and develop a sense of humor. And it became a hobby, but now corporate America hires me to come to their companies and motivate them. Now I'll do it virtual. You book them and I'll do them.
Mm-hmm.
But my point, like childhood, I just want to make that when you come from there to where I came, that's what the motivation is about. That everybody's looking for the secret, and my program is called "The Secret Is You." You're the secret. It's all the things you have inside you. I can help bring out in you and show you how I did it. The secret is you.
So what's your most asked question about your times with Frank?
You want to think about this. Frank Sinatra went to the studios 1,431 times. He recorded over 100 albums. He had 1,200. He sang 1,200 original songs that were written just for him. He won the Academy Award, actually 3 Academy Awards. He was this brilliant actor, director, this brilliant singer, the greatest pop singer of all time. And almost always when I give a talk about Frank Sinatra or something, I'll say, are there any questions? And somebody raise their hand and say, was Frank Sinatra in the mafia? And there's a mystique about this man, why he was larger than life. You think about this career. How many people, Jimmy, you know show business as well as I do. How many people do you know that for 60 years was a star? 60 years. Most people are stars, 5 years, 10 years, maybe, have a run at it, most singers. 60 years he sold out. He sold out. He's 78 years old. He sold out in Japan. He sold out in Argentina. He sold out in Brazil. Was an amazing 175,000 people came to see one solo singer at one time. But even in his late 70s, he sold out in all these foreign countries. And who ever had a career like that? But there was a mystique about this man. A lot of people want to know about him. I spent 14 years as his opening act. I stayed in his home 6 times a year. We became, at first he was the boss, then he became like a buddy, and toward the end of my life, he became like a father to me. And he gave me a lot of wisdom that I pass on in my one-man show, as you know. And when I give motivation talks, I oftentimes cite some of the things he taught me, on how to succeed, and he had one little secret on how to succeed, and that I share in my motivation talks, But, so that's the strangest question. But however, it's interesting. I was on a hip hop show some years back, and after Frank had died, and it was a Latino hip hop show in LA. And he was asking me questions about Sinatra. And all of a sudden the switchboards lit up, and people calling in 19 years old, 18 years old, 21 years old, 17 years old. And at a commercial break, I said to the guy, I don't get it. This Mexican kid, I said, I don't get it. Hip hop music, this station, it isn't Sinatra music. I don't understand why all those young people are interested in him. He said, oh man, he was an outlaw. He was an outlaw. He did it his way, man. And young people by nature are rebels. We rebel when you're young, and you're always doing, and Frank represents that. He did it his way,
Yeah, sure did. He sure did it his way. So you have some stories of kind of like being on stage with him, being off stage with him. You used to come to Chicago a lot and stay at the Ambassador East. And I believe you said you hubbed and spoked from there.
Yeah, well, the Ambassador East has been famous ever since I was a little kid selling newspapers. The Ambassador East is where all the stars stayed, and when they had lunch there or dinner there, they sat in the #1 booth. And then in all the columns, Irv Kupcinet's column or whatever, they'd say, seen in the #1 booth was Marilyn Monroe or Ava Gardner or Frank Sinatra, whoever's there. So that's the only place Frank would stay when he went to the Midwest. He would stay there, and then we would satellite out. We'd do St. Louis one night, fly out in a private jet, do St. Louis, come back. Fly out in a private jet, do Omaha, Nebraska, come back. Fly out, do Lincoln, Nebraska, come back. Fly out and do Detroit, Michigan, come back. We do all cities, Cleveland, we would do all the Midwestern cities satelliting out of the Ambassador East, and always end up back in Chicago into the pump room. We'd go to Gibson Steakhouse for dinner, and then we'd go to the pump room and stay there till dawn. They would lock up and let the bartender stay there to take care of Frank, because Frank was a big tipper, and we sit there and tell stories, Now, when he went to New York, we only stayed at the Waldorf Astoria, and we'd satellite out of there, Boston, Hartford, all the eastern cities, and then on the West Coast, we stayed at his home, and we'd go out to Denver and to, Seattle, Washington, all the western states, So 3 places he'd stay in, and we'd satellite out, unless we went to Vegas or Atlantic City,
Mm-hmm. So you had a couple of stories about being up very late because of Frank had requested you to be up late.
Well, Frank Sinatra never went to bed till the sun came up. When the sun came up, Frank went to bed. He was nocturnal. He was, whether we were on the road or off the road, that's what he did. When the sun came up, he went to bed, and he liked it if you would hang with him. Now, he was a hangout guy, and I am too. Chicagoans by nature, we love to hang out. After the shows are over, You know, most entertainers are that way too, but after the shows are over, you just came off a stage and you're up here, you know, so you didn't go straight to bed. You went and you let the evening, you know, you kind of came down later in the evening. Frank would get his favorite drink, Jack Daniels, Jack and a splash, and sit back and we'd tell stories till the sun came up. But I've got so many stories about that. I think I told you one time we were in Las Vegas. We had just been on the road doing like 5 one-nighters. We flew into Las Vegas and opened at the Desert Inn and did 2 shows that night. And now it's 4:30 in the morning and Frank is going strong. And I want to get up. I want to go play golf in the morning. It's 4:30 in the morning. I'm so tired. And there's like 5 people at the table. I got up, started to go. He said, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going to bed." He said, "What for?" I said, "Because I got to get up early in the morning, go to the cemetery and visit those guys." He said, "What guys?" I said, "All those guys who died trying to stay up with you every night." He roared, you know, he said, "Go to bed." Then he made me tell that story all the time.
Yeah, he did call you the master of all ceremonies, and I also know that pretty much every comedian looks up to you, and you know you are the pinnacle of comedy, and you know how to tell a joke, you know how to tell a story, you know how to tell a story, you know how to tell a joke, and I remember you explaining, you know, that kind of theory of, you know, how a joke is set up. And so now you're taking your stories with Frank online. So you did it for the first time. You had a very successful one going. You'll be doing more of these in addition to some of the private events that you'll be doing online?
Yeah, it's called The Man Who Made Sinatra Laugh. And I tell stories of like I just told you, one of those stories there. And the reason Frank called me the master of ceremonies, I'm a stand-up comedian first, last, and always. But I MC big events, corporate events, Ellis Island Medal of Honor Awards. I was a master of ceremonies for the Frank Sinatra Black Tie Affair for 29 years in the desert. Also, when Bob Hope couldn't do the Bob Hope class anymore, I MC'd that. The reason why Frank liked me to MC, because he was very impatient. And those programs some nights go on and on and on with no flow. And I know how to look at a program. If you gave me a program, you the corporate guy, and said, "This is what we want done tonight. Can you help us?" I know how to put, this should go first, that should go second, this should go third. So so we have what you call continuity, and it flows. I know how to do that, and I know how to do a monologue within the confines of that. So I can bring you stand-up comedy, but I can move the evening program along. And every time Frank was invited to some event like that, or they were going to give him an award, he'd say, "I'll do it if Tommy MCs." He said, because Tommy's the master of ceremonies. And I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. But the way I became that way, I, like him, used to go to those events and so, God, is this evening ever going to end? And finally, I would start doodling on a napkin. This should have went here. That should have went there. And then I started volunteering to do it for charities. And then I started doing it for a living. You know, I said, you know, being able to, I know how to set the program up. I know how to do that. You know.
Okay. Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, all of that experience that you had, you're offering to provide that to corporations. And, you know, if one guy knows what he's doing, it's definitely you. I mean, you have the experience, you're professional, you're clean. You know, we don't have to worry about that on a corporate side. And, you know, I could just see the value that you would bring in a boardroom or a meeting room where there's, you know, salespeople that, you know, maybe it's even an incentive, you know, that you get to tell stories and on top of the motivational stuff. So, so with this virtual program, when do you think you're going to have another one out?
I think I'll have one soon because we got such an incredible response from this. I honestly, Jimmy, I didn't know how it was going to work. I kept thinking, you're going to have me tell stories to a computer, and I can't see the audience because there was hundreds of people signed up for it. I didn't think I could pull. I said, I'm going to do the best I can, and it was beyond my wildest expectations. It really got tremendous reaction. And so I think I'm going to do another one soon, you know, and I think I'm going to do, like you say, you know, board meetings where the people can have a Zoom board meeting, and then I can come in and I not only can tell give some motivation, some funny stories, but they can ask me questions. If it's 10 people, you know, a couple of years ago, a guy from Toronto flew me up to Toronto and paid me real well to do a show in his house for 12 people. 12 of his buddies. They were all, Sinatra fans and all in the real estate business. And I gave a little motivation and I gave some funny stories. And, so I can do it for two people. I can do it for one person. If one Sinatra fan or one Tom Dreesen fan or one guy wants some motivation, I can do it for one person or I can do it for 1,000, whatever you want.
Absolutely. So I think we're running out of time here. We could go on forever. I mean, you've got such great stories. Probably one of my favorite storytellers, one of my favorite comedians. And I just highly respect what you do and how you are. You have Chicago in you, even though you're in LA, but you're just such a nice guy. I mean, if you want to look up Tom, you can find him on Facebook, and you could like his Tom Dreesen.
TomDreesen.com.
And
you can find it on my website, TomDreesen.com.
Yep. And you can also find him on HereChicago.com. So if you want to contact him directly through Here Chicago, you can do that. You can email him directly. So Tom, thanks so much for joining us today. I really hope you're doing great out there. How's the weather?
Oh, California, why it's so expensive to live here? Because we pay for this weather. It's gorgeous out there today. Of course, you got to walk around the block with a mask on,
Yeah. Stay safe, buddy. We love you here in Chicago, and we miss you, and we hope to see you here again soon in person.
I hope so too, Jimmy. My best to you, and give Chicago my regards.
Oh, you've already done that. You've done a great job today. I really appreciate it. All right. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Do I leave?